Hey everyone, Leo with Dreaming Tree, and welcome to the assembly video for our Paper Whites floral arrangement. I've got all my pieces cut out, as should you. It's been a while since we've done a floral arrangement, and this one is going to be pretty awesome, if I do say so myself. We have a really cool looking geometric vase, and we're going to actually start with the assembly on that. Now, before I hit record here, I did a little pre-gluing just to kind of speed things up and get rid of the monotonous processes. You can see here you have a total of 6 of these pieces. Okay, it's kind of funky shape, but don't worry too much about that. So we have 6 total, and each of these sections, you're going to have 6 of these. Well, it kind of look like little coffins, and 6 smaller ones. And we're going to begin by simply gluing these panels onto their respective little locations here. So let's do that. I'm going to do one with you. You're going to repeat the process 5 more times to get these glued onto the remaining pieces. And then we're going to assemble this. It's a little bit different. It is going to require that we do a little bit of painting of the glue, just because the last little section is a little, well, it's going to be hard to get your glue nozzle into that tight little spot. But I made a couple of these already just to test them out because we were trying some new things and wanted to make sure that I could teach it, and I felt that I could, so we're all good. Okay, so this one's going to go here like that. Make sure that you maintain a nice even border all the way around. Use these little corners here and match them up with the corners on the actual structure to try to get that on there as accurately as possible. Okay, so this is actually the top and this is the bottom, but for the sake of the tutorial here, we're actually going to start with the longest strips, and these are all the same. The pieces are all identical, so it doesn't matter which one you pick. And let's just hop right into it here. I'm just going to grab one, and again we're going to start with the longest tab, which is this one here, and we'll apply our glue as always. I'm going to spread that glue out nicely all the way to the edge, and I found that doing this flat initially just to get the initial alignment is the best way to go. You want to nudge that up to the little score mark as far as it'll go. Press that down, and before it's fully set, you can take it and fold it onto itself, and this should be flush. These 2 sections should sit right on top of each other, and that's a good indicator that you've got it lined up correctly. And then you can press that down, and now we have that section put together. And before we glue the next sections or go towards the bottom, we're actually going to continue and make one long piece here. So we can grab the next section here and apply our glue. Spread that glue out so everything looks nice and seamless. And just like I did the last time, grab this piece, grab the next piece, or the piece that we've already put together, line it up as accurately as you can. There we go. Press that down into place before it's fully set. Go ahead and fold it over onto itself. Check the alignment there. That should be nice and straight, nice and flush. And press down on that seam. Okay, not difficult at all, and very happy with the style of this thing. All right, moving on. Grabbing the next piece. Let's apply our glue. And I don't know if you can hear it, but it's awfully windy here today. It makes me think that Old Man Winter's getting pushed out by spring, finally, hopefully. All right, again, same thing. Just line that up as accurately as you can. Press that down. And essentially what we're doing is we're taking this edge here. I'll explain this in a second here. Let me just make sure I get this in place and that it's all nice and lined up before I move on. Okay, so there's a little score mark right here, okay? And the idea is to get this piece as close to that score mark without going over, okay? And you almost want to get it like, if you could take the score mark here and dissect it and split it in half, you almost want to get this piece to cover half of that score mark. I don't know how else to explain it, okay? So you can kind of see the score mark on one side, but it's covering up the other section of it. I think that's a good way to explain it. I'm not sure how else to explain it, but anyway, just line it up as accurately as you can. I'm getting into maybe more detail than I need to, and that's okay. Many of you have made a lot of dimensional things with us before, so you know what you're looking for. Okay, same thing here. Just continue on, getting everything nice and lined up. Okay, there we go. I'll press that down. And again, I'm going to take this and fold this over onto itself. Check my alignment on the bottom. Press that down. There we go. Okay, coming together nicely. And the last little section here. Let me clean off this nozzle. So I think we're making a total of 9 flowers for this one. Technically, you could cut out more if you'd like. You could maybe do less. I probably wouldn't do less, but I guess you could. One of the, an arrangement project like this, you got to realize that there's going to be a little bit of a time investment. Actually, with this one, we're not actually inking the flowers because the flowers are white, and in nature they're mostly just straight white. Not a lot going on as far as shading or anything like that. So that part will go a lot easier. They have a lot of leaves similar to what you would see on like a tulip kind of coming up from the bulb. So there is some inking involved there, but it's really not too bad. Okay, all right, so we've got it all put together, and what I did next was I took and connected this section to this section here like that, and I went all the way down the row until they were all connected. So that's what we're going to do, and because of its geometric shape, it's going to get a little wonky. It's going to feel a little different to you, okay? But that's okay. We need to try some new things and push ourselves a little bit. All right, so we'll tuck that back behind, and you could technically bring this part back just to get it out of the way. Get that nice and lined up, and I know this is kind of blocking it, but I'm just using it because it makes it easier to get my fingers in there. Okay, you could leave that there and then technically also use your table if you want to do that. So as I've said before, and as my old science teacher used to say, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I need to stop using that term. I'm not a big fan of that term. So anyway, in the comments, leave me an alternative of what I could say instead of there's more than one way to skin a cat. I'm sure there's another way to say that without being weird about it. Okay, so again, I think it's just easiest to bring this in. We'll take this part here, we're aligning it there. Get that nice and aligned. There we go. Okay, and then we can actually just put that down on our surface and press down. And if you get a little bit of glue that squirts out, just rub it off before it sets. Okay, and moving right along to the next one. Yeah, it just feels kind of funky in your hands. I'm not used to this this geometric sort of shape thing that we got going on here, but it's okay. We gotta try some new things. All right, we'll line that up as well. Try to line that up as accurately as you can. Now I would just really focus on making sure that you are holding it right here at this point. Okay, and then of course, press the rest of that tab down. This paper's gorgeous, by the way. Okay. And you may want to just kind of wait a little bit in between tabs, maybe more than I am, especially if you are still kind of new to using glue on projects like this and you're not 100% sure whether or not your glue is completely set, Or if you have any doubts, just patience is very important so that everything stays together nicely, nothing comes falling apart on you. Okay, let's press that down. You can also still use your table here to press down. Okay, and I can see here, I kind of rushed it a little bit, and I have a little gap there, and if that happens to you, just grab a scrap piece of paper, throw a little bit of glue right on the corner, and just tuck some glue in there, paint it onto that tab. I think I got some glue in there, did I? I think so. And just pop that back into place, and again, be patient and let that glue really set. Okay, there we go. But that is coming together nicely, almost there. Can move on over here to the next section, and we're going to close this up last. So we're going to kind of build it until we get to the last part, and then we'll close it up. I think I found that that was the easiest way of getting this thing together without running into too many problems. Okay, so there is the next tab. I'm going to tuck that in and behind, line it up nicely and press. Whoops. Okay, maintain that contact throughout. And just hold that in place. Okay, and now what we can go ahead and do is we can start gluing the top section together. Okay, so we can actually scooch that out of the way. And let's throw a little bit of glue onto that tab. We're just going to work our way back. Okay, so we'll get this lined up as accurately as possible. And press and hold that in place, especially up here at the top. I'm going to go back down and then come back up. You can see how pretty that is. A little bit different. And only one pattern paper here that you have to pick. So that's going to make it easy. I guess you could do two-tone if you want. All right, so now here is where you're going to want to grab a few scraps of scrap paper, and we're going to begin using our little painting method to close this up. You could technically try to get your nozzle in there, but that's just going to make a huge mess. I don't like to work that way. So I'm going to throw some glue, a nice amount, on the scrap piece of paper, and then very gently take and pop that in between and just paint that glue on. You can do little strokes right towards you up to the score mark. And then once you kind of start running out of glue on that scrap, you can kind of rub it a little bit. I would try to only do those little strokes that I was showing you, just to really keep that glue focused and concentrated where it needs to go. Okay. And you should be able to, if it helps, take these tabs here and fold them out to give you better access to the inside here. Okay, like that. So you can really get your fingers in there. There we go. We're right here at this point. All right, so now here's another seam right here that we need to connect. So we'll grab our scrap. I don't know what happened to my other one. I think I put it over there somewhere. Again, good amount of glue on there. And just take, and I got the glue face down and just doing little strokes right onto the tab. I don't know if I had enough on there. Might need to do a little bit more next time. Rub off any excess, line it up, and press that down into place. Make sure it's nice and aligned. There we go. Perfect. Wonderful. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, be patient while that dries. All right, now again, we're onto this tab here, and we're almost to the end here. Whoops. Oh, that was almost a disaster. Careful of these. There, that's where my scrap piece went. Careful of those, that you don't lose track of where they are and then end up getting glue somewhere where you don't want it. right? Grabbing another scrap. You could use the same scrap piece of paper. I don't know why I keep getting a new one. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so you can lift this side up a tiny little bit, pop that in there, and just paint that glue right on the edge of that tab. Just like that. Again, if you want to try to get your nozzle in there, go ahead. I predict bad things if you try to do that because you're, you know, this thing's already has some resistance. You don't want to try to yank it apart too much because you might split a seam here. So don't rip your pants. Okay, there we go. I've got one left here. I think that one's pretty good. And again, just throw a little bit of glue. I could do a little more, I think. Right on the edge. Tuck it in between that seam. Paint the glue right on that tab. Nice gentle stroke towards you. There we go. Beautiful. Wipe off any excess. Line that up. Like so. I need to kind of nudge that out a little bit. I've got this piece back there trying to hide, and that's okay. It's just the nature of the paper and how it wants to sit, not a big deal. We'll pop that out in a second. Just want this one to really get a good hold. Okay, and now we're just gonna finish this up by connecting these 3 tabs, and can do a few things here. I think it's probably best to start on the bottom one, and we can actually pull this out. It's the largest tab, which means that we have more visual space to see things and ensure that everything is matched up accurately. Spread that glue out to the edge, and we're going to tuck that right in behind this section here. Make sure that's nice and accurately lined up. You may have to kind of hold it from over here. Nice and flush on the bottom. Should match up to that point right there. Looks great. You can technically put that down on your surface and press down from the inside. If you're having a hard time getting your fingers in there, you can always grab a dowel and use a dowel to press down on the tab. Okay, there we go. Beautiful, clean seam. And then I think what I did on my prototype was I did the top tab and then I just painted the middle one. So I'm going to do that. And that way I know that everything will be lined up accurately. And technically you could probably get your glue nozzle in there, but since I'm already in this zone of painting my glue on, I think I'm going to do that. There we go. All right, let's line that up with the top, like so. Might need to kind of push this out a little bit. There we go. And that just leaves this little guy here, and there's a big enough gap where we'll be able to take a little piece of scrap paper and just tuck it right in there to apply our glue to the tab. And at this point, it doesn't really matter which side you apply the glue on. Just slide it right in. Paint that glue onto one of the sides, just like that. And then go ahead and press that down. All right, look at that. Turned out wonderful. Okay, so just need to put a bottom on this. And I'm going to begin by applying glue to just one of the tabs. Doesn't matter which one, just pick one. And let's get that glue spread out to the very edge. And we're going to take this little hexagon shape and pick one side, line it up right out to the edge, make sure it is also centered. Okay, hold that in place for just a moment. Let it kind of get its feet. And then you can pull it back towards you. Press down on the rest of the tab, like so. Give that a few seconds. There we go. Move that out of the way. Bring these tabs in, not quite all the way down, but bring them in. And let's apply glue to the remaining tabs. And we're going to close this up get a nice solid bottom on this. And I will be spreading this out to the edge as well, like so. There we go, okay. Now, when you bring this down, focus on getting it aligned with this tab here, the tab that is opposite of the tab that's already glued down. Focus on getting that aligned, nice and center. And if you need to kind of nudge some of these in or out as far as the walls go, it's totally normal. So we're taking a six-sided shape and kind of forcing it to be at a certain angle as far as each of the angles go. So that's totally expected. And once you kind of mostly have it in place, flip it over and push down on the tabs from the inside with a little dowel. Obviously, you're not going to be able to get your hand in there, and that's okay. Sorry for all the racket. Take a look at your seam, make sure everything is nice and clean, and it is. And there's our beautiful vase. So because of its shape, I opted to go with some fill. I would probably recommend you use something that's not edible. Not so much for your recipient, but for any little critters that might happen to be looming in your home. I know we like to think that we don't have mice. I live out in the country, so I have mice, which is why I have 2 cats, and they keep them pretty much at bay. But I'm gonna fill this up with some of this stuff. In the floral section of, you know, Joann's, Hobby Lobby, you can find, what do they call this? Crystal Dazzlers. Okay, well, you're probably supposed to put these in something transparent so you can actually be dazzled by them, but I just kind of grabbed whatever I had on hand. You could probably use like dried beans. I found that critters are not big fans of beans, but for the most part, I'd be careful with what you put in there. If it's remotely edible, chances are something will find it and eat it. I'm gonna pack this up all the way to almost the top, because I really want, when we go to make the arrangement, we just want to make sure that this thing holds everything exactly where we want it. Okay, let me just fill this up. And I think that should be enough. Okay, and that also makes it nice and sturdy. All right, so that's that. And next, I'm going to go over and discuss the various parts of this. We'll get to the flowers last. Okay, so let's just discuss the leaves real quick. There's a total of 5 long leaves, okay, and I've obviously here, I've taken some and already wrapped them onto some stems. Let me just get this out so you can see. Okay, so we have 5 long ones. Then we have 2 that I'll call medium. Okay, you'll notice that the tips of these first set of 7, the width is the same. Okay, so there's 7 with the same width. 5 of them are a little bit longer, 2 of them are a little bit shorter, okay? Then we have 2 that are thinner and this length. And let me pull this one out here. And then there's 5 that are thinner and this length. Okay, so what I've already done here is I've taken one of these and I've already put it on the stem. Okay, so there's 2 there, and then the rest of these are also already on stems. I did this off camera. Okay, so we have 5 shorties, 2 medium shorties, and then we've got 5 large and 2 semi-large. We'll call it that. Okay, take 2 of the large, put that off to the side. We're going to use that on one of the actual floral stems. Take 2 of the mediums, okay, there's only 2 of these actually, and put those off to the side. Those are going to go on a set of flowers as well. The rest of these, need to be wrapped onto hibachi sticks like this, okay? And the process is the same. My advice is to put all of these on a full individual hibachi stick. That way, you know for a fact that you have additional length, should you need it, when you're working on your final arrangement, okay? Because you can't add length to it. Actually, you technically could. There's a way to get around that. You don't want to have to deal with that, okay? So to get this onto a hibachi stick, obviously I've gone and inked these, and you do want to ink, this is the texture side, I inked the sides here, pretty much all the way down to where the folds start. And then I also inked the tip of this a little bit, just in case if we do train this and it folds down, I want to see some of that inking there, okay? So what we're going to do, you'll notice that there's score marks at the very bottom here. You want to fold that in half and grab yourself a hibachi stick and kind of start wrapping the top of it. I would literally wrap the very top of it, okay? And as you're working with your floral tape, make sure you stretch it out so that you release and expose the little sticky element in there. Just wrap just a little bit of it, maybe, I don't know, 1.5 inches, okay? And after you've got this folded, bring your hibachi stick up to just slightly below where the fold or the score line ends, and just begin wrapping it around the hibachi stick or the skewer. Okay, just very gently wrap it around once, and then once it's kind of wrapped around itself, continue bringing it down, and then once you have it wrapped a few times, continue wrapping until you go all the way down to the very end of the actual paper part of it. Okay, so there you have it. And again, this is my texture side. I can take a little dowel, place the petal between, or the leaf between my finger and the dowel, maybe about halfway, lift it up about 45 degrees and run the dowel through, and it gives it that little bit of a curve. You can see how it gives it that little curve. If you want to make that a little more pronounced, you can come up here and fold it 90 degrees, and you can see what that does, okay? So that is going to be an artistic decision that's left up to you. Okay, so that one is going to be an individual one. Let me just put all of these stems that I've got done off to the side, and that just leaves 2 more that I'm going to put on a hibachi stick. Okay, now these shorties here, again, I would highly recommend not doing what I'm doing right now and chopping this, but I'm using this hibachi stick here for one of the shorties. Again, don't forget, you want to start by just folding at the score mark, and then you can literally, once you've got somewhat of that fold going, just kind of pinch it and finish the fold. Take your hibachi stick, literally pop some right on the top of it there. It's going to hold it in place, and then just wrap just maybe 2-3 inches of the stick. Okay, hold that down. And then I'm going to pop this right in here, just slightly below where the score line ends. Get your tape ready, stretch it out, and just start wrapping around. I went a little bit below the top of the stick, but that's okay. I just went up, and now I'm heading back down, and keep that nice and tight up against your stem. And bring that down to about there. You can always add more, but most of this is probably going to be inside the vase. So I'll show you here what we're going to ultimately be looking for. Okay, so probably don't want that much of it sticking out. But again, when it comes down to the final arrangement, that's when we can start trimming and making those decisions. For now, the more length you have, the better off you're going to be. All right, so last one here. This is the individual stem. Again, fold at the score mark. Get yourself a hibachi stick. And this is a full one, that's fine. Put a little bit right on the top, fold it down, press down, and just work your way down. Pretty much the length of the folded area is what you want to cover. The sticky part of this will help keep this in place while you wrap the rest of it. Okay, so just take that, pop that right in there, like so. grab your tape right at the tip of where that stick is and just start wrapping. Okay, it's pretty simple once you get used to it. And there we go. There we go. Okay. At this point, yeah, you can go ahead and train that a little bit if you want. You could even take and hold the very tip of it and curl it down to make it look like that. You can get crazy. Get nutty. All right, see, I didn't like that. I'm gonna go back and retrain that a little bit. I want it to be very subtle. Okay, that one looks good. That looks good. That looks pretty good. They're reaching for the sky. You don't want them drooping too much. These are, these are fresh flowers that just came out of the earth. Okay, all right, cool. So anyway, you're gonna do that, and you should end up with a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 various sized and length leaf stems, okay? So we'll put that off to the side for when we are ready to work on our arrangement. And in the meantime, we've got a couple flowers to put together, and as you can see here off camera, I think we're doing 9 flowers. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them already done, and the process is the same. Now this is 20 gauge wire, okay, and you can see how beautiful that flower is. We did add a little bit of white floral tape right to the base. If you take a look at these flowers in nature photos online, you'll notice that they almost have a very, it's not super pronounced, but there is a little bit of a white, I don't even want to call it a calyx. It's just white before the little flowers come out. And I'm sure that the white is pigmentation that eventually leads to what is the flower. Now I forgot to do that here. I'll go over this in a second. We're gonna build 2 flowers from start to finish so that you are a pro, and these flowers are very easy to put together. Okay, I just want a little bit of white there. And then I'm going to cover that up with a little bit of green as well, just to hold that in place. But the flowers are very easy to shape. There's not much to it at all. And I've made a bunch of these already, so I think I have a pretty good method down as far as building the flowers. And I'm going to share that all with you right now. So each flower is going to be made up of 2 sets of petals like this, 1 set like this, and then obviously we have this little stamen piece. Okay, so again, we've got 3, 6, all right, I'm sorry, there's 8 flowers total. No, there's 9. 9 flowers total. So you can kind of separate these out into 9 sets if you'd like. And I'll show you what you need to do with each of the various sections. So for this section here, what I did was I took a 1/4-inch dowel, and you can place it in the center and just wrap the 2 sides around it like that. What I like to do so that I don't get a crease is kind of start on one side, and as I roll it over, kind of push it onto it as well. So I'm starting on one side, just kind of rolling it and pressing down, and it ends up pretty much doing the same thing. It's just a little more gentle. With this paper, it's probably not as big of a deal, but maybe with some of your cardstock, it may be. So again, I'm just kind of pressing it up against one side, and I'm kind of holding it in place here, and then taking the dowel and just rolling it towards the other end while slightly pushing up on it. Okay, so again, you can do it right in the center, push up on both sides like that, or just kind of do a little roll and very gently do it. Okay, so that's how you can shape those. Also, you can take then, after you do that, and just give them a little pinch right at the very tip to make that a little bit more pronounced, like that. And what I would do is go through and just do that to all of the pieces that look like this. Now also, another thing you can do too is you'll notice that there's a little X in here, a little well, just two little slits that form an X. And this is where we're going to feed our floral wire through. And what I kind of found, depending on the gauge of your wire, you do want to use 20 gauge. You can go thicker, but if you want to keep it looking, you know, true to life, I would use 20 gauge and just kind of take the tip of a hibachi stick, the pointy tip, and just pop it through just to kind of, you know, get it ready. Now for this section here, same 1/4 inch dowel, taking and pinching the very tip of the petals and literally just rolling them in. Okay, almost like you're curling your hair. And that's going to help them kind of curve in and stand up. And you can also take and just kind of squeeze them in a little bit so that they sit up like that. Okay, so you're going to repeat that process for all 9 flowers. I'm going to do one more set with you here. Okay, there we go. You can pinch it that way. You can roll it however you want to do it. And don't forget to give it a little pinch at the tip. Try to be as accurate as you can. And then I'm going to take my hibachi stick and just kind of free it up a little bit. Okay, one more time, like that. There we go. There we go. And just loosen up that little point there. And then finally, going with a little bit thinner dowel here. Grab the very tip right at the very edge and just roll it in towards you. Just kind of cupping it in. And just give that a little squeeze like that, okay? So you're gonna repeat that for all of the flowers, and then make sure that you've got your wire. Oh, by the way, if you want, not necessary, but I did this as well. On all of the stamen pieces, I took, we cut this out of a yellow, I'm not sure off the top of my head what color this is, but I did hit this with a little bit of ink, so you're welcome to do that. The flowers themselves, I did not ink. Okay, so you can kind of get those ready. Do that in an assembly line sort of fashion, might as well, so you don't have to keep picking up this and that and grabbing this and losing this. You might as well just do all of the similar actions together at the same time, okay? All right, so obviously each flower is gonna require its own little stem, and what I did was I took, and let me get my hot glue going here. Oh man, I was hoping it was charging. I don't think I docked it properly. That's okay, I only have 2 flowers to make, so should be okay. What I did and what I found to be helpful, especially with this very thin wire that doesn't have anything on it. This is just bare wire. Has none of that craft material on it. It has no wrapping on it. We're gonna wrap this ourselves. Okay, and I'm getting a red light here. That's never a good sign. What I did was I actually put a tiny bit of glue on the very tip of this, hot glue, just a very small amount, before I started wrapping it with the floral tape. Okay, you want to go a little bit on top, just fold it over, and then just wrap this down about 1 inch or 2. Okay, because what we're doing right now is creating a porous surface for our stamen to hold on to, because that stamen is going to kind of set the tone for everything. So I'm going just about 1 inch down, and I will leave it like that. That hot glue is going to help the floral tape stay in place. Okay, so again, as far as assembly lines go, you can do that. It gives that piece a chance for the hot glue to dry. Just a nice thin amount. Don't need to overdo it. And I'm going to put this on the charger for a little bit because I think it's about dead. And let's just wrap that around. Okay. There we go. Just wrap it around a couple times until we get to about 1 inch or so. Maybe that's less than 1 inch. Just enough surface area for the stamen to stay in place. Now, as far as the stamen go, you can go on to that step. what I like to do is start at this edge here, the edge that doesn't have the actual stamen pieces. Maybe, well, it does. They're just not these guys here. They're just the nubby ones. And what I'm going to do is actually wrap this around my hibachi stick once without any glue or anything, because I just want it to, I want it to go around the actual floral stem easier. So I'm just going to wrap it around and then I'll just let it go. I'll unwind it just to get it ready. Okay, so we could do that with the other one as well. Just wrap that around nice and easy. Maybe take a little practice. Okay, there we go. And you can unwind it. And that just trains the paper, lets it know that, hey, you're gonna be wrapping around this way. Okay, so next what I did was, and I tried this with hot glue. This stamen doesn't really want to stay on with hot glue. I actually just used regular glue to get this to stay on the stamen, on the actual stem. So I just threw a little bit of glue right at the very tip of this, maybe bring it in just a couple, maybe 2 of these little stamen pieces, and just begin wrapping it. You want to keep the green part of the floral stem below this solid strip here, and just wrap that around maybe a half a time or 1 full time. Okay, and just let that sit for a minute so that it's nice and set. Okay, so I've got almost a full wrap on there with just enough glue on there, and I'm going to let that completely set. I want that to dry pretty much completely so that when we start building the flower, I don't run into any problems with it kind of pulling off. So you can actually, here, let's put some glue here again. You can throw it on the stem too, it doesn't really matter. This way I kind of keep it exactly where I need it. Okay, so probably about the width of 2 of the little small stamen. Just throw some glue on there, grab that very edge, and just wrap it around almost once. Not quite, but just about. Make sure it's making good contact, and continue doing that with all 9 of the flowers. By the time you get to the 9th one, go back to the first one and we can finish up putting the stamen on there. Now obviously, because I'm only doing 2 of them, I need to give this a little extra time. Let me feel that. Boy, that's almost dry actually. I can probably keep going here. Okay, so next, once you're done just kind of anchoring it to the stamen, you can go in and we'll throw just a very little bit of glue along that little strip below the actual stamen pieces, and then we're going to wrap this around completely. Now this way you can kind of hold it at the stem here below the actual stamen, wrap it all the way around and hold, and just keep holding until that's fully set. You don't want too much of that green showing through up here. You want it to be right at the very tip of the stem. Okay. Now you see that I have about, an inch or so of floral tape on there. That should be enough for when we actually slide the rest of the flower through to still have a little bit showing underneath the flower. You'll see what I mean here in a second. But let's go ahead and continue here. I'm going to go ahead and put glue now at the very base of the stamen part. Just kind of twirl it around as you put little dots of glue on there. And we're going to start with this piece here. Okay, we're going to feed that up. Now I tried this with hot glue, but hot glue tends to get bulky. And I want the bottom of my little stamen piece here, I want that to be flush. Now, one thing I forgot to do here with this piece is I forgot to puncture the little hole. Okay, remember I told you that puncturing that is very helpful because it helps things kind of move more efficiently. So we're going to slide that all the way up until it is nice and flush with the bottom of the stamen. And now that glue that we put on there should hold this in place nicely. Be gentle as you push this up in case your glue's not dry, but that's what we want it to look like. Pretty delicate little piece, but definitely doable. And I don't really have to wait for that to dry. I'm gonna flip this over and again, apply glue to the very base of the previous layer. You're probably gonna end up with a little bit of glue on the stem too, and that's okay. And then take your next petal and just slide it up. And you want to bring it up as far as it'll go. You want that to be nice and flush with that previous layer. If it helps, you can kind of put your finger right there and kind of give it a little bit of a downward force. Mine's not moving at all because I let it completely dry. Okay, but that's what that's going to look like. So far, so good. Take a look from this angle here. It should look nice and flush. Okay, we're going to flip this over again and apply our glue right to the base there, a little bit on the side of the stem, that's fine. You don't have to be that precise. No one's going to be looking underneath the flower. And we're going to take our last set of petals, pop it up, and of course we want to offset this so they're not right on top of each other. You want to rotate it to make it nice and full, bring it up as far as it'll go. Okay, and while you're holding it, it's a good time to take and spread these little stamen pieces out. You can even take the little tiny little nubby ones and push those out as well. Okay, and there you have it. Now, if you want to add, and if you want to be, I guess, anatomically correct with the flower, I mean, it's never going to be exactly like it is in nature, but what I did was I took a little bit of white floral tape and just wrapped it around the very base. You want to make sure it's making contact with the underside of the flower, and you can wrap that around 3, 4, 5 times maybe. And that, if you look at these flowers in nature, you'll notice that they almost have like a little white cone just below where the flower comes out. So you can try to recreate that. My goal here is just to get a little bit of white there. Okay, and then just bring that down. These long stems sometimes get in the way. You can always fold it up so that you can twirl this around a little easier. Okay, so it's kind of creating that little illusion of a cone there. You can squish it down further at the bottom so it does have a conical sort of feel and look to it. And then finally, you're just going to wrap that up with green, and you want to go all the way down the stem just to keep everything consistent. You can start and just overlap the white a little bit so it has something to hold on to. And then very slowly and carefully work your way down the stem. And at this point, you can kind of angle it a little bit. Just make sure that you're overlapping it a little bit. There we go. Just continue all the way down the stem until you have it completely covered. Okay, try to keep it pretty straight if you can. This 20 gauge wire is pretty flexible, but the reason we went with 20 gauge wire is because we knew that we had to bunch these together because they kind of grow in bunches towards the top. And anything thicker, I think, would look too bulky and would be probably difficult to manage. So 20 gauge is what we went with. You can try it with thicker wire. It's not gonna hurt it. It may not look as real, but again, I mean, these are paper flowers, and you can do whatever you want with them, really. And this is your creation at this point. All right, so I'm gonna go all the way down. I probably don't need to go all the way down because there's no way anything's gonna be this tall. But again, it's better to have more than to not have enough. And we can always, you can always cut, but you can't put back. So I'm gonna terminate it about there. Just rip that off. Okay, and there is one of the flowers. I'm gonna do one more with you. Okay, there it is. I'll pop that with the rest of my little flowers here. And we'll go back to this step here. Remember, we have the stamen part with that little bit of glue just to hold it and anchor it to the floral stem. Now we're going to throw some glue on the little strip part. Make sure you get glue all the way out to the edge. As you curl this around itself, it's going to kind of push that glue out to this edge here, so you'll probably end up with more than enough, and sometimes a little bit of it squirts out, and that's okay. Just hold that in place. You can flare these out at this point too while we wait for it to kind of set. Shouldn't take long. And we'll flip it up side down And again, just start putting little drops of glue right at the base of the little stamen part. So just above, in my case, the orange color. So next we're going to grab this piece. I'm just going to feed it up the stem. We want to pull this all the way up so that it is flush with the base of our stamen, very carefully. And if you get a little kind of ring of glue around there, that's okay. I have plenty of that, and it doesn't seem to really impact the overall aesthetic, so I'm not worried about that. And as long as you're careful, you can start applying glue right to the base of that, right where the flower meets the stem, all the way around. Go 360. And take the next set of petals, bring it up. You want that to be nice and flush with the bottom of the previous layer. Doesn't matter where it is. This first layer doesn't really matter. There we go. We'll flip her over, apply the glue. Just like that. And grab our last layer. And you want the side that's kind of, the cup needs to be up. You don't want it pointing down. All right, and let's offset it. Just rotate it so that each set of petals is exposed to sunlight, so to speak. Okay, straighten that stem out. That looks great, all right? And again, totally optional with the white. I think it is a nice little realistic touch. Add it if you want. If you don't want to, not a big deal. But after we get the white in there, I'm gonna cover it up with the green all the way down to the end of the stem. And then we're pretty much ready to start putting together the groups of flowers. We're gonna have one group of 5. We're gonna have one group of 3. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, yeah, one group of 3, and then we'll have one that's just by itself, just to kind of fill in this little area. Again, you don't have to do it this way. We're just kind of giving you some ideas on how to arrange it, but you can make it however you want. The arrangement is completely up to you. So anything beyond this point is really just kind of a subjective sort of thing. But all right, so now it's time for the fun part. And that is the actual arrangement. So as I mentioned, this is just a recommendation. You don't have to take it, but I think it's a good one. So grab 5 flowers, and what we're gonna do is just kind of stack them and arrange them as a group, because remember, these flowers in nature, they kind of grow in little bunches. So here's my main one. It's gonna be forward facing. And I'm gonna take another one, and you can either go a little bit higher. I think this main one, I'm gonna say that it's gonna be the tallest one. So everything else is going to be growing slightly below it. Okay, so this one here, we're gonna go just a little bit below. So there's a tiny bit of an overlap, but not too much. And then we can kind of start to bend right here at the very tip of the stem and kind of make it face away. Now, until we wrap this completely, it's going to be moving around a lot, so don't worry about that too much. Right now, what we're really focusing on is trying to stack these in a way where we're getting as much of the surface area of the petals showing as possible to make it look nice and full. Okay, so that one looks good there. I'm going to bend these stems a little bit. So I'm going to grab another one. And now this one, I'm going to put over on this side, and this one's going to be facing a little bit away. But I'm going to have it at just about the same height as this one here, but maybe just a little bit taller or a little bit higher. Okay, and it's going to be facing away because we do want this to look good from all sides, mostly. Okay, and we can, again, we can always kind of finesse things after everything is said and done. So that looks pretty good. Let me straighten these out. And let's go ahead and, okay, so now what I'm going to do here is, just looking at this, I feel like we want to, I'm going to bring this one down a little bit and take this one and put it right here, maybe facing off to the right a little bit. Again, just trying to bunch them together, figure out the heights. We'll worry about the rest of it in a minute here. Okay, but that looks pretty good, nice and full, not a lot of gaps. And again, we still have a little bit of stem to work with so that we can finesse things. We just want to kind of get it in the ballpark. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now let's go and grab this one, and this one's going to go right about here. Let me flare this out a little bit more so it's kind of not completely drooping, but somewhat. Okay. And I think that looks good. Maybe we'll bring this one just a little bit lower than this one here. Okay, so overall, I think we got ourselves a pretty good little arrangement on these 5. Maybe we'll bring this one up a little bit. Okay, and you just play with this until you'll know. You know that feeling where you're like, yep, that's the one. Okay, and I think I'm gonna go that way a little bit with that one, and maybe turn that one a little bit more, and there we go. Okay, so I think that's good, which means that it's now time to kind of scrunch these together and use the little sticky elements in there to help keep it all together. And we're going to wrap this all together into one stem. Okay, so let me pull this out. And you want to wrap it up as high as you can go before they start kind of turning and splitting off. Okay, so let's go all the way down the stem here. Try to keep it as round as possible. While I had them together initially, they were kind of all flat next to each other. But now that I have them in somewhat of the final position, I kind of bunched them together to make them, you know, more round as far as the stems go. And let's bring that down. I'm going to keep going down. Again, the more you have, the better. Just going to always cut, but you can't add. Okay, so there we have that one beautiful stem. And now what we're going to do to kind of hide that stem, and let me see here. Yeah, I can definitely start cutting this away because that is obviously too much. So I'm just going to flare these out. It's going to make it a lot easier to work with. We can start trimming the bottoms of these to make this a little more manageable. Just trim that off. And if you really want to be OCD about it, you can take and wrap the bottom of this completely. But again, I'm not even sure if this is the final length yet. I think it might be. Let me see here. I might need some more support in there. I don't think that stuff's going tall enough. That's not bad. Okay, so that's not too bad looking. And again, with this one, with this first set of 5, what I want to do is I'm going to take and with the longest leaves here, we're going to kind of hide the stem a little bit with this piece, but we do need to curl this because we want the top to kind of droop a little bit like that. You still want it to be pretty stiff and straight up like that. Okay, but we do want to kind of hide the stem a little bit. So find right about that height, I think, just so that the leaf is just slightly below the first set of flowers. Okay, and then we're going to take and just wrap that around to get that leaf in place. Okay, so I'm going to try to keep this maybe not directly in front, maybe off to the side a little bit. So this is my front vantage point. I'm bringing it about, I don't know, 40 degrees off to the right. And we'll do the same thing with the other one, okay, just to kind of fill it in nicely. And we're going to start right at where the score lines end and begin wrapping that around. Bring it all the way down, kind of make sure that that leaf is hugging the stem nicely so it doesn't look so rigid. You want it to look mostly round. Okay, all the way down. Just to make sure that's not going anywhere. There we go. Okay, and so that kind of moved on me a little bit as I was wrapping it, but you can technically kind of twirl it and pop it back ever so slightly. A lot of this is going to be moving around. It's going to be very fluid, and that's okay. You can always go in and kind of move things around after the fact, just trying to get everything onto a stem. Okay, All right, so let's grab the other one here. And this one I'm gonna bring down just a tiny little bit so it's not at the same exact height as my other one. I can kind of push it up against the stem to help with the folding. Don't forget to take and train the tip of this so it's kind of coming down a little bit. And I want to offset this one so it's not exactly on top of the other one. You can see where this one's kind of flaring out this way. I do want to see a little bit of the face of this one on this side. Okay, so again, it's important that you hold it nice and tight in place as you're wrapping it because it may have a tendency to move on you. Okay, so just be conscious of that. Try not to move the leaf too much as you're wrapping it. And just wrap that all the way down. Now we have one solid stem with everything in place. Okay. And I'd say that looks pretty good. Okay, let's take a look. That's going to be my front, so I can just kind of move these around. The height was the most important thing because you can always change the direction of the flowers. There we go. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Bring that one in a little bit, and there we go. Okay, so let's pop that one in and see if we need to. This first set of 5, these are going to be the tallest. These are going to be standing nice and tall, and I do think I need some additional support in there, but that is looking pretty sweet so far. Take a look at that. Okay, looks good. Okay, I dig it. All right, so now let's do our set of 3. These are probably going to go over to either the left or right hand side a little bit. We're going to do our next set of 3 off to the right. They're going to be a little bit shorter. Okay, that looks awesome. All right, so let's grab our next set of 3, and we're going to do the same thing roughly. We'll have 1 as our main center focal point, and let's take this next one and we're going to bring this one down slightly and maybe veering off to the right a little bit, like that. Again, don't worry too much about the positioning yet. We're mostly concerned with the height. Okay, we'll grab this one here, and this guy is going to go, well, let's see, maybe we bring this one down a little more and then pop this one in between to get a bunch like that. Maybe they're a little too close. Hold on. Pull that out a little bit. Create a little bit of separation, and I kind of like that because again they do grow bunched together like this in nature. Okay, so let's go with that. Let's go with that sort of look right there. Grab your floral tape, and we're gonna tape these together. Now with this, it might be a little difficult to turn this into a cone or a round shape with the 3 of them there. But that worked out nicely, actually. That worked. I'm going to tape this up a little bit higher and then come back down. We're turning this into one solid stem. And then remember those 2 of the thicker but slightly shorter leaves, those are going to get glued to this. And this one doesn't need to be as tall, so we can definitely terminate this and trim this a little bit sooner. Don't have to go as low. Okay, so again, taking a look at this, take a look at it from the other camera angle. Maybe this will actually curve out a little bit that way to make some room for this one here. It's going to go right about there, I'd say, which means that we can really trim this up. Okay. Let me take a look and see what that's going to look like. Okay, that's still too much. Let me trim some more off of that. So this is what I mean. It's good to have extra, so you can work with that. Okay, there we go. looking pretty good. Let me bring that up a little bit. Bring that down. There we go. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so let's now take and we're gonna put our little leaves in place. I've got some goats on a mountain behind me. It's kind of weird. Don't forget to kind of curl that down, like so. And I'm gonna stand that up a little bit straighter. And again, I'm gonna bring this one up a little bit because I've got some space back here. You can actually turn this one over this way a little bit, or whatever you wanna do, really. There's so many possibilities here. There's no wrong way to do it. I think the overall idea, the overall thing that I want you to achieve is to keep them in clusters and try to minimize the negative space in between the flowers. And I think with doing that, you're gonna end up with a very pretty result, okay? So again, this one here, I'm gonna bring up just a little bit, and we're gonna start taping right around where the score lines are. Just make sure it doesn't move around while you're taping. Keep that nice and in place. Just wrap that around. Okay. All the way down, like that. Okay, that looks good. And now with this one here, this one I'm going to have kind of forward facing. Right about there, we can go a little bit lower. Just to kind of fill in those gaps. Press that up against the stem to help with the creasing. And there we go. And just start taping right at where the little score marks are. Again, try not to, don't let it slip as you're taping because it will move. You can also tape just maybe go around 2 or 3 times, and if it did move, just correct it while there's still time to correct it. There we go. That looks good. And then just wrap it up, finish it up. All the way down. Okay, we can always trim this a little more if we need to. Now that we have our final stem, we can take and adjust some of the petals here, or some of the flowers, I should say. Growing in bunches. Beautiful. Okay, so now take this one and pop it in. I'm pretty sure I'm going to need to trim my stem here. Maybe not. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, so far, totally digging that. Now remember this last one here, this one's gonna be solo. That way we have a little bit of flexibility as far as where we can place it to kind of fill in some gaps. You wanna keep the main stems towards the center. And I'm going to actually thicken this up a little bit so that it's somewhat in line with the thickness of the other stems. Maybe I'll wrap this a couple more times just to thicken it up, and maybe I'll wrap it a little loose to help thicken it up without having to apply too many layers. Okay, so there's one layer, nice and loose. And then I'll go back up the stem and tighten it up a little bit. There we go. And that just really added some nice girth to the stem so that it is more consistent with the rest of the flowers. Okay, don't forget to just make sure that it is in fact sticking to the stem. All right, I'm gonna bend this out so it's forward facing, kind of almost drooping, I guess you could say. And let's take a look at the height on that. That'll be perfect. We'll pop that one right here. There we go. I may play with this a little bit more. I don't know yet. I'm going to take a look at it. And I've mentioned this many times in a lot of our videos where we've made floral arrangements. Sometimes it helps to put it together, let it sit, walk away, come back with a fresh set of eyes and see just what you have and if there's something that can be improved. Now the rest of this is just really filling in the gaps and just filling in with these leaves around it to make it look more natural. Now you can see here, I'm standing this up next to this. There's no way I need that much. So I can literally just kind of cut that off and then you can just pop this in and you can see things are going to be moving around anyway. And you can throw some kind of in between the flowers. And then with the smaller ones, these smaller ones, you kind of work your way out, okay, out towards the edge. I'll do those last. Leave the smallest ones for last. We're gonna do the large ones first. Okay, got another large one here. I'm gonna trim this. You can use wire cutters if you want. It's the hibachi stick. So I'm gonna put one back here just to kind of fill it in back here a little bit. Just pop that down. Again, take a look at and do a Google search for Paperwhite flowers so you can see what we're trying to recreate here with these little sprigs and these stems, okay? And I've got one more tall one and I'm gonna put that, let's see, I'm gonna pop that through and down. Let's pop that one right there. There we go. Again, we're going to need to kind of finesse some things until we get our, I need to trim this a little more. Now be careful as you're popping these in here not to damage your vase, obviously. Okay, and I'm starting to think that maybe my choice of filler is not the best, but it'll work. It always works out. Okay, so I've got all my large ones in, and now it's just a matter of filling in kind of the perimeter with these smaller ones. And you know, I should probably just pull up a photo of what these look like in nature so you can see what we're trying to go for here. Just really want to fill in the bottom of this with these little guys and just kind of surround the main growth. Let me go this way. Surround the main growth with these little guys. Well, no, I had that right. There we go. It's gonna go right in there. Yeah, I may need to change out what I'm using here as far as the filler goes. Sorry, I'm like thinking about 90 things right now. Okay, and again, just around the outside perimeter is where I'm adding all of these little guys just to fill it in. And once you get most of them in there, it'll start to kind of, actually, it's already pretty much come together. Now it's just a matter of fine-tuning and finessing things until you end up with what looks good. So again, I may leave this alone, come back, and just kind of move things around. My suggestion would be just to kind of look at my final photo and use that as an inspiration for your arrangement, but ultimately, as I mentioned, how it looks is going to be completely up to you. There we go. I'm going to try to keep these all nice and straight up and down. Okay, so that's going to do it for my initial attempt here at the actual arrangement, but I mean, if this is the best that I come up with, then I'm in love with it, and I think it's beautiful. But again, I'm kind of OCD, and I'm going to take a look at it with a fresh set of eyes, which is what I do with my photography. Pretty much any art that I create, I'll always give it a second look and just try to figure out, is that it? It looks beautiful. I'm very happy with it. And I hope you guys enjoy it too. So anyway, that's gonna do it. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please take a moment, visit us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. While you're there, hit the little bell so you get notifications anytime we release a new product, whether it be paid or free. And if you make this or anything from our new bundle, I'd love to see it, and so would the rest of our community. So head over to your Facebook and do a search for Dreaming Tree Official. That's where you'll find myself and over 40,000 other dreamers that inspire us daily. So I hope you had a blast. And as always, I look forward to crafting with you again. Hey, thanks for crafting along with me. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, check out some of our other videos. And also, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And don't forget to visit our site and check out our free SVG section where we have over 140 free SVG files complete with assembly videos. I look forward to crafting with you soon.